No, he was talking about 500, 300, 800 students. What they need to do is really look at the, do they need to consolidate buildings? Do they need to cut down capital costs? Hooksett is not going to be able to solve their problem. And not giving our students choices to go to schools that they are better matched for is really not acceptable. I do thank you for your time for volunteering, but I also wish that you would do some research on what's best for our children, for our education of our children. As far as 37 students at 8%, that's basically, I agree, that's very little going into the pot for Manchester and Charlotte. I urge you to, if possible, reconsider your decision. These children that are in 8th grade right now had already started their application process before this decision was made. I understand somebody in August was given approval, but 2 months later someone was not. So we're looking at a process that was already in place, and these children are already planning to be rubber stamped, as you put it, and you've denied them that. So going back on your decision, did it not make sense for you to step back and see how it was going to affect the students? Could you have not educated them, made the decision and say next year, next fall, given the parents time to come in and tell you why it's important for you to really look at what's best for the students of Hooksett and for the town of Hooksett, for the state of New Hampshire. So, my request is, can you relook at your decision? Obviously, I am going to go for the appeal, but I really think as a school board, let's be more forward-thinking about our students and their education. Thank you.
How you guys doing tonight? Pretty good, huh? Most of you know me. My name's Ray McClett. I live at 9 Evelyn Street. You know, I want to echo the sentiments. First of all, you won't do me quote too many Democrats in my day, but I will quote one. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And I find it discouraging when I hear people that are elected to represent your neighbors talking in essence about fear when it comes to making decisions on educating our kids. And that's really what I think I've heard tonight. There's been some talk about, you know, we're not sure if we're opening ourselves up to risk. We're not sure if we're opening ourselves up to legal issues with whatever decision that we have. But to me, that speaks of people that are afraid or they want to cover their butts. And you know what? When it comes to my kids, I don't want somebody covering their butt. I want them to do the right thing for our kids. And, you know, I supported some of the folks on this board, okay? And I know some of you have kids in the school system, and I know that you would do anything that you could to give your kids the best education possible. And that's what we as parents, and that's what we as neighbors, and that's what we as the people who foot the bill want to do, okay? And, you know, when you look at the contract, there's no legal wording that says that we can't send kids to another school. There's nothing in there that says we have to send X number or that you can only have X number of hardships. It doesn't even mention the word hardship. And when I hear people talking about, hey, if we send these kids to other schools, that's less money going into the Manchester school and that hurts the masses, right? That hurts the volume of kids that go to Manchester. Well, how many kids go to private school in this town? Anybody on this board know?
62.
62. How much money do we send to Manchester for those 62 kids? So are they hurting the masses? What's next? Do we come up with rules that she can't go to private school? Because if you divert those funds away from Manchester, I mean, that was one of the arguments that I heard. And I understand that's a legitimate opinion somebody might have, but you have to look at it this way. I'm not just the ATM for my kids' education. I'm the person responsible to get them educated, not the 5 people sitting on this board, and not all these educators here. It's me. At the end of the day, it's my responsibility to make sure my kid gets an education. And I think it's you know, in my opinion, it's not only, you know, dishonest in some respects, just to cut parents out of the process. when all we tend to hear is, why aren't more parents involved in the process of educating the kids? Why aren't they more concerned? Why aren't they more involved? We oftentimes hear so many times of parents just being disinterested. They don't show up for meetings, they don't come to school, they don't go to conferences, they don't get engaged. We've got a lot of parents engaged right here, and a lot more behind them. And all they're asking for is the opportunity to do what's best for their kids. No less than what you would do for any of your kids. And when we look at kids that have special needs in this district, nobody ever raises an eyebrow when we need to spend extra money or make exceptions or do the right things so that those kids don't get left behind. Well, it should be no different for those parents who want their kids to move forward, regardless of whether you think Manchester schools are good, bad, or worse than any other school. I don't think that's really the issue. I think the issue is it shouldn't be any different for those kids than it is for the parents who have the kids that want to go somewhere else. You should do the right thing for each and every child. That's what I hear all the time. Each and every child. So I would also ask you to reconsider your position and not base it on fear and not base it on what might happen, but base it on here and now. Based on the wording of the contract, the ability that we've had over the last 8 years to send kids, the agreement that you had with parents, and allow those people that want to be involved in their kids' education, the ones that are ultimately responsible, to have a say in how and where and when their kids get educated. Thank you.
I got a few things I want to ask you about. First of all, my name's are in the paper about every week for the last 6 weeks, and so is Chairman Argos. I appreciate the dialogue back and forth, at least we're communicating. I did want to clarify to the school district here that I was misquoted on this last article last Saturday. I never used the word irresponsible or not responsible options. I never used that. I would never say that of this committee. So I apologize, even though I don't need to apologize because I never said it. I did not want that perception hanging out there between you and me. I never used the word irresponsible. So hopefully you accept that. Sitting out here, you guys were referring to your warrant articles without always identifying what that warrant article is. So perhaps if I could go by number, just give me a headline of what that is, or I'll ask you what it is and you confirm it to the rest of us, because sometimes we were just saying, is number 3 approved, is number 4 approved? So the way I'm reading it, I don't know what number 1 is, but I'm assuming it's the school budget of some sort. Number 2 is the contract.
Number 1 is election of officers.
Election of officers, thank you, so that's why you don't have number 1. Number 2 for the audience perception here then is the contract, the teacher's contract negotiation?
It's the contract for the Hooks and Education Association. Teachers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Number 3, I didn't know what that one was.
That's the Hooks and Educational Support Professionals.
Their professional contract.
Contract.
Their professional contract?
Support.
Support contract.
Support.
Thank you. Number 4 is the default and the budget committee operating budget, school budget, whatever the number comes out to at the end, correct? Okay. Number 5 is the paving line from fund balance.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Okay.
replacing of the parking lot at the
That's for
Underhill
62
School.
3. Thank you. Number 6 and 7, I believe one of them is for the tech fund and another one is for the other one. I can't remember what it's for. If you could identify which was 6 and which was 7.
6 is the Technology Expendable Trust Fund for
Okay.
$60,000. 7 is the Strategic Planning
That's
Fund,
Thank you.
$50,000.
And the trust fund was voted for 3 to 2 votes there. And number 8 is the roofing for Underhill, correct?
Correct, and it's called the School Building
Construction, Reconstruction.
Reconstruction Capital Reserve Fund.
Okay, thank you very much. I also want to clarify a statement about the tuition, the reduction of the proposed budget committee's reduction of the budget. It was actually $572,000 taken out of the high school tuition. I believe it was quoted $590 or whatever. Just want to clarify that. And there was a comment here tonight that perhaps the tuition line could be cut based on the budget committee's proposal of $572. You just cut $572 out of the tuition line. It's well understood, I would assume, between the board, the school board and the budget committee, that because of its bottom line budget, and we asked and we deferred to the school budget to make those kind of decisions, we decided to take it out of the money that was available in one particular line, knowing how the budgetary process operates, knowing that you did not have to take it out of the tuition directly. that you can readjust all the lines in that entire $25 million budget without going directly to the tuition line. Just wanted to clarify that comment that was made tonight. Also, I was also a little, my ears perked up when the technology director stated that the BYOD pilot, even though you corrected it in the vote tonight, he's already rubber stamped it as a major success, and that he's going to be approving it in March, and that it's going to be an ongoing process, even though he says it's a pilot program, but he also assumed that it's going to be an ongoing thing, no longer a pilot program, even though a review and a survey has not even been conducted. Thank you for your time.
My name's Brian Parker, 31 Sterling. I just got a real quick question. We talk a lot about the contract and what's involved here, and I'm pretty sure nobody here has a degree in contract negotiations. Have we conferred with town council on any of this? Have we gotten a recommendation whether or not we can or can't, or if they've even looked at the contract we have in Manchester?
You talking about legal counsel?
I am.
We confer with legal counsel.
Have they given a recommendation on what we shouldn't do, can't do? They negotiated.
Yeah, they negotiated.
Okay, they negotiated it, but now we're looking at sending students to other schools, and we've said okay to them, but now it seems as though the council is saying that we can't send students to other schools. Is there any conference with the town legal counsel on what we can or can't do?
Well, again, I'm not going to talk to you about, the specifics of what we talk to legal counsel about, and I'll tell you why, because lots of times it's confidential. When we're talking about high school, the school of choice, we're talking about confidentiality issues, and we also get into potential negotiations down the road, and so that's why. I don't mean to sound like I'm keeping anything from you, but you don't. The fact that we don't want to bring up the specifics of what we talk to council about is for a very good reason.
Well, the reason I ask that too is I think that telling some students you can't go and some students you can go, we're setting ourselves up as a town for lawsuits down the road. And unless we've actually conferred with the town council to allow us or not allow us to do that, I think that you set yourself up for failure. That's all I'm saying. I'm just asking whether or not you talked to council about who you rejected and who you approved.
I can tell you that council has been, we discussed the policies with council, but not the specific individual requests.
Okay. All right. That's all I was asking. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Christine Lampfair. I actually had a couple of questions. The first question was talking about the budget, the capital cost. And right now that's split between Auburn, Candia, and Hooksett as far as Manchester. So what happens when Auburn leaves and goes to Pinkerton? Is that now just solely Hooksett and Candia, I assume, or is that split with Manchester in a different ratio?
It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, it does not impact the capital cost that Hooksett
It
pays
won't change.
to
Okay.
Manchester. Is that correct?
And another thought I had in listening is I understand the concern is as far as we are not set up as a state as a voucher town or a tuition town. However, thinking of it sitting in the chairs, we're not the first, the only, or the last town that has parents that want to send their students to other schools. And I think of our neighboring town of Auburn that has done this practice for years openly. And there was never a concern for a legal issue as far as that. And I think if you look at it, their ratios are probably higher, how many students were being sent out to other towns and schools. And the school board listened to that, and they took consideration as far as how the ratios were increasing every year, and a change was made. So I hope that maybe this might spark some interest on where we want to go